Hi, second grade. Welcome to Wit and Wisdom. We are on lesson 15 already, if you can believe it. Today, we are going to explore the text and illustrations so that we can better understand the setting and characters in the story Stone Soup. We are going to do that today by completing a new read assessment. So again, we're looking at the story Stone Soup. That is by Marcia Brown. Marcia Brown is the author, meaning that she wrote the book, and the illustrator, meaning that she did the pictures for the book. Listen real carefully. Your secret code word for today is illustrator. What is it? Illustrator. Good job. Let's start our new read assessment. The question we're going to answer first says, what did you understand about the people in the village when you read pages 8 through 9? Is it A, that they are selfish and do not want to share? B, they are scared of the soldiers? Or C, they are worried that the soldiers will eat all their food? Let's read pages 8 and 9 to figure out what our answer should be. Here come 3 soldiers. Soldiers are always hungry, but we have little enough for ourselves. And they hurried to hide their food. They pushed sacks of barley under the hay in the lofts. They lowered buckets of milk down the wells. They spread old quilts over the carrot bins. They hid their cabbages and potatoes under the beds. They hung their meats in the cellars. They hid all they had to eat. Then they waited. Again, the question we're trying to answer. What did you understand about the people in the village when you read pages 8 and 9? A, they are selfish and do not want to share. B, they are scared of the soldiers. Or C, they are worried that the soldiers will eat all their food. Let's go back and take a look one more time. Here come the soldiers. Soldiers are always hungry, but we have little enough for ourselves. So it sounds like they don't have very much food for themselves. And they are hiding all of the food because they say soldiers are always hungry. So, were they selfish and did not want to share? Maybe. Did it seem like they were scared of the soldiers? Not really. Were they worried that the soldiers would eat all their food? Yeah. What do you think the answer is? A, B, or C? What do we understand about the people when we read those pages? If you guessed C, you're correct. They were worried that the soldiers would eat all of their food. It isn't necessarily that they were selfish and didn't want to share. They were saying that they didn't really have a lot of food and that soldiers were always hungry and they ate a lot. So they were worried that the soldiers would eat all the food that they had. Great, let's continue. We're going to look at the illustrations in these photos. So not the words, but the pictures. So go ahead and take a few seconds. Look at each illustration. What do you notice in these illustrations? What do you notice about the setting or the characters? What sorts of things do you see in each picture? Okay, let's take a look at our question. What do these illustrations help us understand about the setting? So where the story is taking place. So we could see that there are a lot of people. Where does it look like they are? Oh, looks like old buildings. This looks like there's like straw on the roof, cut out little windows. There's water or like a puddle in the middle of this area. Looks like there's some birds, maybe chickens maybe. Over here, a couple cows, a pig. It looks like, maybe it looks like muddy or dirty ground. And I see lots of people. So when we're thinking about the setting in Stone Soup must be a small town or a village. Looks kind of like old, maybe not very a wealthy or rich village. Looks like there's a lot of animals and a lot of people that they have to feed. So that is telling us a little bit more about the setting, which is when and where the story takes place, just by looking at these pictures. You can tell that these peasants, these townspeople or people that live in the village, doesn't seem like they have too many riches. Looks like, lots of children and adults, lots of animals, and, not the nicest buildings or homes. Great, let's go ahead and look at our last question of the new read assessment. Our question is, how do the words and pictures on the following pages help us understand the characters and setting? So this time we're looking at both the words and the illustrations, and we're trying to figure out how does that help us understand the setting and the characters, the people in the story. So I'm going to go through a series of pictures here. So I noticed in this section, one thing that stood out to me was at the bottom here. So it says, "Ah," sighed the soldiers as they stirred in the beef and potatoes, "if we only had a little barley and a cup of milk. This soup would be fit for the king himself. Indeed, he asked for just such a soup when last he dined with us." The peasants looked at each other. The soldiers had entertained the king? Well, but no use asking for what you don't have, the soldiers sighed. The peasants brought their barley from the lofts. They brought their milk from the wells. The soldiers stirred the barley and milk into the steaming broth while the peasants stared. So this line right here, "but no use asking for what you don't have," the soldiers sighed. The peasants had already told them that they didn't have any food. So the soldiers were being tricky, using their brains and telling the peasants that they would make soup out of stones. But what were they really asking for? They brought them barley and milk. It says they stirred in beef and potatoes. Could you get that from a stone? So the characters, the soldiers, it tells me that they're using their brains to be a little bit tricky. Let's look at these pages. Look at the illustrations. And here the words say, "At last the soup was ready. All of you shall taste," the soldiers said, "but first a table must be set." Great tables were placed in the square, and all around were lighted torches. So you can see that they're preparing a table, a big gathering table in their village. And it even says here, great tables were placed in the square and all around were lighted torches. So this changes the setting where the story is taking place a bit. Before it was, just their empty square and they had all gone and hidden their food in their homes. But now they're bringing things out into the square. It seems almost like, when you're setting up a big table like that, it's like a picnic or a feast. That tells you that you want to share what you're doing with people. So you can see over here more and more peasants are joining in to help the soldiers who are making this soup. Okay, 2 more pages. Take a look at the illustration. And up here it says, "Such a soup, how good it smelled, truly fit for a king." But then the peasants asked themselves, would not such a soup require bread and a roast and cider? Soon a banquet was spread and everyone sat down to eat. Never had there been such a feast. Never had the peasants tasted such soup, and fancy, made from stones. That last line, "and fancy, made from stones," again, that tells you this soup wasn't really made from stones. They're being a little bit like a joke that way. So it's going back to how the soldiers really tricked the peasants into providing food they knew that they had so that they could share and make this soup. And you can see here that, the peasants don't seem upset about it. If you look around at all of the characters, what do you see on their faces? You see they're smiling. They seem happy. They seem joyful. Nobody seems, upset or sad like the soldiers are stealing from them. They're all happy to be together and sharing this feast. So going back to that question, how do the words and pictures on the following pages help us understand the characters in the setting? On those last few pages, what did the words and pictures tell us about the peasants and about the soldiers? And how did it change the setting in those last few pages? Think about it. I'll share my thinking with you. I noticed that the peasants and soldiers were smiling, that their personalities seemed at first like They didn't really want to share with the soldiers, but at the end they were happy. They were all happy to be together and happy to be sharing what they had. They all came together at the end for a great feast. So at first they were kind of separate. The soldiers were going from house to house and asking for things and being told no. But at the end, they're all together surrounded by this great feast, and they brought the tables together. And then the part that stuck out to me is they kept coming back to, oh, fancy that, soup made from stones. The soup wasn't really made from stones. The soldiers tricked the peasants into thinking that. And each time they would say, well, stone soup is good, but you need this and this and this. So they really tricked the peasants into sharing food that they already had so that they could make their soup, they could make their feast. Sorry, that's my dog. He doesn't like the vacuum cleaner. So just by looking closer at the words and pictures, we can really get a better idea of what these characters were like in the story, how they changed from the beginning to the end, and how the setting changes too. I hope this was helpful for you, first grade, and I enjoyed exploring the pictures and words with you in Stone Soup. If you need to remember what the word of the day is, go back to the beginning of the lesson and listen again. Bye-bye.